Welcome to the Truth+Dare podcast, where we celebrate Canadian entrepreneurs. My name is Jennifer Neal, entrepreneur, brand expert, business leader, and co-owner of Truth+Dare, the creative and digital agency for entrepreneurs and those that think like one. Today, we're so thrilled to have Brian Scudamore with us today. Brian is a serial entrepreneur and a passionate people person. You will know him as the pioneer to the professional junk hauling industry with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but he now has added brands in painting, moving, and home detailing industries under his O2E Brands banner. Today, Brian's going to talk to us about his Go Dark vacation strategy, why he takes Fridays and Mondays off, and his WTF office policy. We're so thrilled to have Brian with us today. Let's get started. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer.
We're so thrilled to have you today. I can't even tell you. So maybe just to get started, you can bring us up to speed on the current landscape of where you're at with your 4 busy brands. What's going on at home? What's going on at work? Just give us a bit of an idea of what life looks like for Brian.
Yeah, life is busy, but life is very fulfilling. I absolutely wake up every morning loving what I'm doing. Now, not every day is easy, either at home or at work, but it doesn't mean that it's not enjoyable. It's not a challenge worth living. I feel blessed to have the life that I do. I mean, I've got 3 young kids at home and 4 brands, 3 of them quite young at work. And it's just the challenge of bringing amazing people together. We've got about 400 people in our head office, all working to build something much bigger together than any one of us would have chosen to build alone. Mm-hmm. So while it's a busy life, I certainly am one, and we might talk about this, but just I've got a great balance in my life between family, friends, work, and so on.
That's awesome. I'm particularly interested in going back to what I call the aha moment. And I'm sure you've talked about this a cajillion times, but I know, I think you were, back in college and driving through a McDonald's drive-through when it hit you to start what I think started out as the Rubbish Boys. Is that right?
That is. And it's interesting. While one might refer to that as an aha moment, I don't think it was really a big aha moment, and I'll explain why.
Sure.
So I was looking back when I was 18 years old, 1989, looking for a way to pay for college. The aha to me was not a big deal. It was a very small idea of, hey, I need to find a way to pay for college. I was in a McDonald's drive-through, and there's this beat-up old pickup truck in front of me that said Mark's Hauling on the side. I look at the truck and I go, oh, there's something I could do. I took $1,000 that I had in the bank, which was my life savings. I put $700 into a truck, the rest into flyers and business cards, and started the Rubbish Boys. It was really just me, not rubbish. I gave it a plural name with the hope that it sounded a little bit bigger. And it really was just to pay for college. So while people look back and often say, wow, that aha moment of when the stars aligned and you finally figured out what business opportunity you could start, it wasn't until years later in 1993 when I dropped out of university because I was learning more about business, running the business more than studying in school, that I decided to go all in, put all the chips on the table and say, you know what, I'm going to build this business. This is a great opportunity. So I just think it's interesting, and and I don't even know if I've been asked that question before, but it hit me when you asked that wasn't really the aha moment. The aha moment was years later, and in fact, there'll probably be another aha moment sometime this week. I mean, They continue to hit someone, and you just got to go, how do I take this next opportunity? How do I take things to the next level, and being mindful for the opportunities that you encounter?
Right. But I guess I have 2 questions about, though. You say that you had $1,000 in the bank and you took that to buy that truck. For me, there's still risk there. You could have gotten a loan. You could have. Did you see it as a risk?
I didn't, only because I still, I think, saw it as a fairly small amount of money. So while it was my life savings, when you're 18 years old, I think most 18-year-olds kind of live paycheck to paycheck if they've got one.
Yeah.
It wasn't a ton of money. And if I'd lost it all and I needed to start again, hey, I could do it. I'm 47 years old today. if I put all my chips on the table today, I'm risking my family, my livelihood, my company. It's just, I think the older you get, the less risk tolerant one wants to be. But at 18 years old, hey, risk it all. At 25, risk it all.
Yeah.
But it certainly gets to a point where you start to learn, okay, how do you take chips off the table? How do you be a little more cautious and play it safe?
Right. So, do you have any recollections over the last 25 years of where you've really felt really down or where you'd failed or, I think sometimes we learn most out of what I call the tears and the bruises.
Sure.
Do you remember any of them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes you want to choose not to remember those tough times. But to me, we have an attitude around here at the Junction, our head office, that we call a WTF attitude. And what that really stands for is willing to fail.
Oh,
It's
okay.
okay to it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fall down, get bruised, get battered, and get back up. That's what does make us stronger. So some of the bigger bruises, 1994, 5 years into the business, I fired my entire company. I
Yeah.
had 11 employees and I said, hey guys, this isn't working out. And let's face it, it's my fault why it's not working out. I didn't find the right people, train you right, give you the love and support you needed. And I made a change and I started again. But that taught me that you're building a business that's all about people. We're not building a product. We're building a business that's based on people with all of our brands under the O2E brands umbrella, which stands for ordinary to exceptional. Everything we do, we can't build an exceptional home service without having amazing people. And it's those bruises that certainly hurt when you fall, but they make us stronger in the future.
For sure. Maybe you could also talk a little bit about while you're on the topic of when you fired your whole company, isn't that where your concept of beer and barbecue came? Did it come out of that firing?
It came partially out of that. The name followed years later, but the beer and barbecue, what that is a simple way to understand how we recruit great people. People often say, how do you find such awesome, exceptional people? And my question back to people is, how do you find friends? You don't
Right.
go with a checklist and start looking for all these things and spending a ton of time interviewing them. You just get to know them as people and you get to see, are they interesting? Are they interested? Are they people that you want to spend time with? And we very much look for the same thing in our employees. Now, if we're hiring a CFO, as we did a year ago, you've got to find someone that's got the CA designation and all
Sure.
those sorts of things. But to me, it's hire on attitude, train on skill as much as possible. And so the beer and barbecue is one person interviewing someone for a position at O2E Brands. Would that person, would you have a beer with them? Do you think you can enjoy your time working alongside that person? And then the barbecue test is one where we say, what would it be like with this person at a company barbecue? Now, you got a lot of extroverts, a lot of introverts, all sorts of different people here within the business. It just means, would this person fit and get along with the rest of the group at a company function?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about mindset. As an entrepreneur myself and surrounded by entrepreneurs a lot, we can do some really good collateral damage on ourselves sometimes with what runs through our heads.
Sure.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about maybe if you ever did have the negative mindset and what your new self-talk or what the reframing self-talk is.
Yeah, I think I'm a human being, and I certainly go through my own bouts of mini depressions and times where you question your own confidence and what you want in life and where you're going, how you're going to get there. I think when I get negative thoughts in my mind, I try and remember that our thoughts turn into, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, your thoughts become words, your words become your actions, actions your habits, and so on. And ultimately, what you think you become. So I try to pay attention to what's in my brain, a lot of information swirling around in that ADD sphere, but it's really one where I say, okay, could I choose a more positive way to frame this? When something bad happens in the business, which things do, it's a living sort of organism. And when things go wrong, I just go, okay, what seemingly better thing or opportunity can happen as a result of this tough decision or tough change? And that philosophy never seems to let me down. Doesn't mean, again, that you don't wrestle with a tough concept of something that's changing in the business, but how do you really reframe things in an opportunistic way?
I found it, yeah, just having those little tools or tricks I find can be really important during those down times. Question about time management. You know, you've obviously started and made successful 4 brands now. Do you remember when you were, when you had 1-800 and you were starting that second business? Do you have a recommendation of how you split your time between those two businesses? Any theories on how you devote time to launching another startup when you're still running the other one? And now 4?
Yeah, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes the same sort of philosophy with a business. I can't do a lot towards running 4 companies, but I
Right.
can certainly do a lot towards sharing a vision of where we're growing, helping to recruit the people at the top who will build the team that will help us grow. So it's focusing on what are your strengths, what do you love to do, what are you good at, and finding other people who can do all the other things that you might not be good at or might not be able to do and don't have the knowledge or skill around. So for me, the whole concept again of it takes a village, it's just like parenting. I can't raise my 3 kids on my own, nor would I ever attempt to, but it's really one of those things where you need the support of school, the community, your mom, whoever, right? And it's one of those things where the same thing happens within a business. You can only do so much, know your limitations, and know where you want to specialize and put your attention.
I'm sure that that's really grown too for you over the years. Probably not as strong when you first started as it is now.
Yeah, I've become more narrowly focused, I think, in what I work on today versus what I was doing 5 years ago or 15 years ago.
Right.
Today, I get to focus on PR and vision, culture, communication within the company and getting people sort of rah fired up about where we're going. Whereas 10 years ago, I would have been much more focused on all the details and it was definitely a fun time. Again, I say that I've always loved what I've done, but when you're able to really focus in your sweet spot of what you were meant to do, that's when life really gets interesting.
Yeah, and I was reading about how you approach Fridays and Mondays. That must fall into your sweet spot a little bit. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, Friday's off. So I have practiced that for years. I'm sure, let's see, I remember when I first joined the Entrepreneur Organization, which is a big mentoring arena for me where I get to learn from other entrepreneurs. And I remember I joined in 1996, so almost 22 years ago. And I met another entrepreneur, John Mara, who used to take Fridays off. And he had a $125 million financial business.
Wow.
And I remember saying, wow, if you can run a business that size taking Fridays off, that's impressive. And his philosophy was you can't build a business that size without taking the balance, the time for yourself and your family and so on. So I started practicing Fridays off, and I didn't stick with it for the entire past 22 years, but it's something I've become even more disciplined about as time goes on, because I know that it allows me to recharge my batteries, to get more focused, have the energy I need to bring to work in terms of positive mindset. And the balance is something that I'm a big believer, as we are at the Junction. Work hard, play hard, and sometimes you go some crazy hours, but you also need to take that significant amount of time to go on vacation, time with the family and friends, and time away from the business. I find that some of my best, most powerful ideas come to me when I'm actually not working.
Did you find that hard at first?
I think difficult only in the sense that there was some guilt, feeling
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't want people to think, hey, Brian's king and has this philosophy that, hey, he gets Fridays off. Well, why can't the whole company have Fridays off?
Right.
And so, granted, as an owner, as a founder, you're often working a lot of crazy hours in the early evenings, the nights, what have you. But it's one of those things where, as an owner, you're always switched on. And so I think it's important to take that disciplined time to switch off. But one thing that we do is I do something called going dark.
Mm-hmm.
So every Christmas vacation or in the summer, I'll take a period of 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, and I'll shut off from email. I'll get my assistant to change my passcode. I can't check email even if I want to. And so I'm literally unplugged from the business. And what I said was, okay, this can't just be a recharging tactic that works for Brian, the CEO. It has to be something that if we really believe in balance, how do we get our people doing this? And so we've come up with this go dark policy where when people take vacation, and we give 5 weeks paid vacation to all our employees, we
Wow.
want them to take some periods of going dark so that they can experience that same benefit of focused time with their family and truly, truly recharging. And so sometimes it means systematizing the business and putting the processes in place where you can make things like that happen. But it isn't just a, hey, at the top, we get to do this, but no one else gets to. It's try and make it work for the whole 1-800-GOT-JUNK or O2E Brands family.
That's great. You did talk about balance earlier. You've talked about it again now. Is there anything else that you like to embrace, or maybe just a natural way that your body works that has helped you with balance? Like, were you always a morning person or a night owl? Any other tips or tricks breaking your week down that helps you get through everything?
Yeah, so Mondays I'm out of the office, but I am working. It's one of my most productive days where I'll go find a coffee shop or I'll, work somewhere outside of the home and outside of work where I can just crank through in a focused way a bunch of stuff. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, back-to-back meetings, and Fridays I get the time off. On a daily basis, what I do is I get up at 5:55 a.m. I know that's sort of a precise time, but it seems to prevent me from hitting the snooze button on the alarm most mornings. And I get up and I spend a power hour, an hour to myself with before the kids have hopefully woken up, and I can focus on learning new languages. I'm big into learning Spanish and French,
Wow.
or focus on myself in terms of what are my goals and dreams, and am I reading my own personal painted picture? Am I staying focused on the future and being the best person I need to be for myself? And so it's one of those things where I try and carve out the time first for my personal life, for my family, and then the business, comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
If I think it's Stephen Covey who said, put the big rocks in first, then the sand, and so on. It's filling what are the most important big rocks in my life? It's family and friends, and it's taking care of my health. And so I take care of those first, and then what's left of the business is what's left. I
Mm-hmm.
think most people, especially North Americans, do it the other way around. They do all the business stuff, and then as their life falls apart or they're stressed, unhealthy, overwhelmed, that's what their friends and family get. And I don't think that's fair to people.
Right, right. So tell us, maybe in those morning hours, are you reading? If you're reading, what are you reading? Who do you follow? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, so in the morning, I'm in that power hour. I'm generally reading notes that I've written to myself about, when I'm at my best, things that I want to focus on in the future. It's often time when I'm doing exercise, stretches, meditation, things that just allow me to be the best person in terms of starting my day and being fired up and charged for the day ahead. I'm not a big reader, being completely honest. I'm a
Wow.
big book buyer.
Yeah.
I am someone that has all these books on my bookshelf, and my wife looks at them and just thinks I'm crazy because she's like, "Why do you buy all these books?" She buys them and reads them.
Oh,
I
that's
buy them
funny.
just to put them on a shelf. But I love to learn. My learning comes less from reading and more from conversations,
Hmm.
from talking to others, calling up mentors, meeting new people, and just learning about their life.
Wow. Well, it's fascinating, and I applaud you for talking about not reading, because it's one of the things I always say that leaders must be doing all the time. So, but whatever it is, it's working for you.
Yeah, I think I feel the pressure to read at times, which is probably partially why I buy those books. But
Yeah.
I'm so ADD, never finished high school, never finished college. I have a hard time reading. And so it doesn't mean I don't love to learn. I just learn in a different format.
For sure. So I'd really want to dive into a little bit about your experience with rebranding Wow One Day. Um, I find it fascinating. Obviously, that's the business that we're in. How did you know you had a problem, and how did you know it was a brand problem?
Just felt like people weren't connecting to the business. I felt that we were revolutionizing an industry, taking the painting space, fragmented mom and pop space, and saying, okay, let's figure out how to do it differently. Let's go in and paint someone's home in a day. It's a numbers game. Put enough bodies into a home and get it done with the same quality but a much faster time frame. Not rushing, but just done in a day versus done in 2 or 3 weeks. And when I looked at the brand, the look, the feel of the company, how we acted, what we stood for, it didn't feel right. It felt too collegiate. It felt very much like a student painting company. In fact, our colors were blue and orange, a very common color palette for college football. It
Mm-hmm.
just felt too collegiate. It didn't feel like it was the right brand. And I looked to rebrand, and I trusted my gut. I hired one company to rebrand. They probably got the brand to a 5 out of 10. It didn't feel right. I ultimately stopped working with them for the time, went to another branding agency, and he probably got it to a 7 out of 10. And then ultimately, I ended up going back to the first guy who did the initial work, and it just became a team effort. And he got it across the finish line. Now, it's funny because I talked earlier about where you get your inspiration, and some of my best ideas hit me when I'm not working.
Mm-hmm.
The idea for Wow One Day Painting, or the idea for the rebrand, hit me when I was in Florence, Italy on a vacation, and I walked past one of a million gelato shops, and I see this one flavor at this gelato shop that had a couple of lime slices and a little lime wedge that made that one flavor smile. You know, the two eyes, the mouth, and I looked at that flavor and I just thought, wow, if a flavor of gelato can almost have a personality and reach out and smile to me, imagine what our brand and our logo could do if we got it right. I took a picture of that. I sent it off to Noel Fox at Freebird, who did our branding, and Noel got back to me days later with the new look and feel that we use today, all based on the inspiration of Little Pile of Ice Cream.
Well, and you use the word feel approximately 10 times in that short excerpt. How would you talk to other entrepreneurs about the fact that you spent budget on what you felt was right or wrong? You know
I
where I'm
think
going with
it's
this?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. I mean, a lot of people would say to me over the years, "Oh, Brian, you can't trust your gut. We need data." Well, there's a
Mm-hmm.
place for data, there's a place for gut. Somebody who's a founder, if they've built the business properly and they've got their years of wisdom and experience, I think Malcolm Gladwell would refer to his book Blink, where just in the blink of an eye, you can tell that something feels right.
Right.
It's not really a gut. I think it's just rapid processing of intuition, of everything you've learned to date, of all your experience. So if something doesn't feel right, I think often that's just your experience telling you that something isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And while you can't put a finger on it, you know that something needs to get better. And I knew the second I saw the green Wow One Day Painting logo that came through my email when Noel finally got it right, I'm like, wow, that is it. It made me smile. It made our franchise partners smile. And we had 100% adoption of going forward with the new brand and logo.
That's awesome. And I think you've also talked about the fact that since you've rebranded, you have more than tripled your revenue. So you can, dot that line back to the branding and ROI.
Yeah, and is it really the brand that we got right? I like to think that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the leader of the business, James Alish, who came in to take over the brand and get it to the next level. It's the team of people he's built. It's the vision. It's the execution. It's so many things. And so the reality is, I think when someone starts a company, you go through learning, you make mistakes. Some things work, some things don't. It's never perfect. But what it is it's a culmination of a bunch of things that allows you to be successful.
Right. So, I mean, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and many of them say brand doesn't matter. How would you comment on that?
I would disagree, of course. I'm all about brand. We've got 4 companies that all have brands that we've worked hard to get right. So I think brand is your sort of first impression. It's what connects with the customer, the look and feel, the visual. And I think it's important. I think that every single company, you can be a law firm, you can be a real estate broker, you can be someone that's washing cars. It doesn't matter. You've got to, I believe, have that first impression, something that is the sign that you hang your hat on that is really connecting with the customer.
I love that. Obviously, I think it's a fabulous statement, and I agree with you. I think it's something that if more entrepreneurs could embrace, they could have more success, like the big guys do. But it takes time. If you were to say anything to any entrepreneur that's maybe struggling or wondering whether or not to take the plunge and take the risk, what would you tell them not to lose sight of?
Don't lose sight of the people you bring into your organization, the people that you surround yourself with when you share your vision. If you're sharing your vision of what it looks like, what it feels like, how you're going to act at a point in the future, and you share that with people, you want your partners, your friends, your family, your lawyer, your accountant, everyone that surrounds you. You want to make sure you've got people that believe in you, that are optimistic, and can see what you see. One of the things I've learned is you get rid of the people like the 11 employees who weren't the right people in my company when we first started or early on. You surround yourself with people that believe. And the second thing I would say is come up with your painted picture, I call it. Come up with your vision of where you're going as a business, what you think it will look like, how it'll feel, and how you will act. And this whole concept of a painted picture came from I was sitting at my parents' summer cottage, 8 years into the business, in a bit of a doom loop, feeling like maybe this business couldn't grow beyond the size of $1 million where we were. I took out a sheet of paper and I said, okay, be the optimistic Brian that you're used to being. And I painted this picture in words, one page double-sided, of what the future could and would look like. And I started sharing that vision with people around me. And those who believed stayed in the company, helped me build it. Those who didn't believe went elsewhere. And so I think this concept of a painted picture, and I'm happy to share our current painted picture with anyone who's listening to the podcast. If they want to go onto Instagram and send me a message, it's at Brian Scudamore. Happy to send you our painted picture. But a vision is everything. If you start with the end in mind, then you can start to create the team, the people, and the execution.
Yeah, it's great. I think vision's huge for you're right, for not only for the owner and the founder, but for the people that are choosing to be along with you. So really great. Brian, where else can we find you? You've commented on Instagram. Where else can we find you online?
O2E Brands. That's the letter O, number 2, letter E, brands.com. And O2E Brands, again, stands for ordinary to exceptional. So we're taking the ordinary business of junk removal or painting and making them exceptional through customer experience and through developing great leaders and entrepreneurs.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I thank you for your time, but I also thank you for what you've done and what you've accomplished. You're truly somebody that I look up to. You've accomplished so much, and yet it all starts somewhere. So I thank you so very much for sharing and for your authenticity and for your stories. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Jennifer. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Great. Thanks so much.
That concludes our podcast for today. Be sure to check out our site, truth+dare.ca, for more podcasts and more content where we interview Canadian entrepreneurs just like you. Growing a business is hard work, and as entrepreneurs, we don't always have the answers. Some of us are a few steps behind the people that we admire, and sometimes we're a few steps ahead of someone else. One thing I know for sure is that when we share our truths and challenge our dares, good things always happen.